Hello again, Glitch Reaper here, and I'm continuing on with my big review for Evilcraft. Now, I maybe need to remind you that I have this wall up here for a reason that will be in the next segment as to what is behind this particular wall of ore. But it's what's on the wall that's for this segment, because I'm currently doing the thing about upgrades and all the stuff that they really unlock for you, because the thing about Evilcraft is it actually kind of gates your progress behind your upgrades, and that's actually kind of unique. You actually upgrade your stuff, and then it opens up whole new tiers of stuff. I haven't actually seen that in much else. Usually it's tiered crafting, like you have to make this before you make this, but not you have to upgrade this to make this. It's a bit of a different story, and I definitely want to go into that here. Now the thing is that there's a lot of interesting things that that help out, and it has this special upgrade system. And again, this is a Magitech type mod. It's kind of a bit of a borderline between magical and industrial type tech, and as such, the machinery does have what you could call magical upgrades. But before I really get into that, I'd just like to show that there are these cute little display stands. And now, how you actually make these, it's universally compatible with woods, so they have different looks for them. It takes a couple of planks, some sticks, and a slab of whatever wood that you choose. And note that it does have like a tag on it. Whenever I showed that, well, you can see it goes through all sorts of different types. So we have things like oak, spruce, birch. We have like jungle and acacia, and it also has mod compatibility. Over here we have some from Evilcraft. This is Darklands oak, and this is Dreadwood. So, and some of these are from Twilight Forest, actually. So, it actually has almost universal compatibility with wood, and it acts as a nice contain and display sort of thing, as you can see. And I wanted to mix up the later sections with some of these. They're easy to make. They're actually something you could do in the beginning tier, but it's something that I thought was better to show off upgrades and intermediate ingredients for this segment and forward, actually, because of how they work. Now, one thing that you're going to want to note is that you're going to need some very particular things to start really upgrading. One of which is, and by the way, these things have an interesting way that they work. Even in creative, whenever you put something on, it actually takes it out of your hand, and so that way you don't wind up having to throw away the item to get rid of a duplicate. So that's one thing it's definitely got over vanilla item frames. Now, the thing is, this is known as a bowl of empty promises. You make it with 3 dark power gems, so you have to upgrade your gems themselves just to make this bowl. But as I showed before, that's actually decently easy once you got a blood infuser going. And what this is for is basically it's part of how you upgrade not only your blood infuser, but other things as well. It's not quite what you think as to how it works, because the bowl of empty promises has to be filled first. That's right, it has to be filled first. So, let me show you how to do that. Every time that you wish to fill this bowl, you have to give it a couple of crushed dark gems. Now, this is a shapeless recipe, might I add, so doing this in any way works. Now, the filled bowl of oh, that's beautiful. It's working with the 1.12 recipe system. In fact, I might even do that way, but it doesn't seem to log it directly in here. I think I need an actual crafting table. I may have to grab one just to do that at some point, but oh well. Anyhow, how you use this is every time that you have this filled, it's still not complete. You have to do something particular with it, and it's going into your blood infuser, because it has to become specially empowered. And to do that, you have to give it basically, well, each tier that I'm going to show you usually has to do with a full blood infuser of the corresponding amount before you get to the next tier earned. With the third tier, third upgraded tier, I should say, being where you're never going to need that much at one time. So it's basically the first, to actually get it up there, you need to basically have 3 full infusers worth. Now, initially it starts with 10,000 MB. That's 10 buckets worth of blood that you'll be needing. And this does take time to get this thing working. So you can see that it's still working that way. And as usual, it has its whole animations thing. Or did I have that off for a second? I think I would needed to. It's just decreased. It's like normal. Blood infuser? Why aren't you bubbling? There you go. Let's see, it takes a certain amount of time to do that as usual. But the thing about it is, you'll notice over here that they have these empty slots. These are for your special upgrades once they're complete. Now, this up here helps unlock these. This one's kind of reserved for one of the upgrades. For every rank of it you get, you unlock another slot. Now, some other of the blocks don't have that, and some of them do. Like, this one can't really be upgraded. It just has the spot for inserting blood. But, as you can see over here... actually, that was half. But in other words, it's expensive just doing this part. That's always 5,000 MB or 5 buckets worth. That doesn't really get affected by like the upgrade system directly, but you will need to have it full for what you're actually going to use this towards. But for now, know that you need to fill this bowl, then you have to empower it. And it'll say strength when it's like 0, 1, 2, 3. That's very important. And that's because, well, let me show you here. The tiers determine various things you can actually do with the bowl. Now, in this case, you could only work with these two items, the Spider Eye and the Iron Promise Acceptor. Now, I haven't shown that exactly how you do it yet, but it is something that I already have over there in the ingredients. You may have seen it as this little round ball here. Now, how you get it is you have to use a block of iron and in the blood infuser, and it will create the Iron Promise Acceptor, but look how much it needs. 10,000. That's exactly equal to this full normal amount. As I said, each time you're trying to tier up, it'll cost you a full set. Well, that's why I said that. It really does go through that pretty quickly. Now, you can see here we have the actual, like the Iron Promise Acceptor, and we have this. This is one of the first of the really important things you need for upgrades. Now, I'll temporarily put up my bowl because I don't actually need it because I actually have these things already here. I was just kind of showing up the process of how you get the bowl that you need to combine with these things. And the strength level that it says on that tag, as I said, was important because you'll need it to get some of the different tiers of this. Now, as I already showed, you need to combine it with a Spider Eye and that filled bowl. But this is where things start getting into the actual upgrading system. This is called a Promise of Tenacity. The promises are how you do your upgrades. Like, see how this one says, machine tier upgrade also usable for lower tier recipes, and it says tank capacity ×2. Well, it also gives you a list of things it uses, including the blood infuser and a few that I haven't shown yet, like the rest of them. Well, the thing is that whenever you do this, as I said, it will actually upgrade in terms of giving you additional upgrades it can accept. And this is where I should go into alternates and more. And also note, if you upgrade it, it does keep whatever its supply already is. So I can fill that up, and it'll be fine. If I want to do the next upgrade, it will take basically a full one of these, like a full tank, worth at 40,000 MB or 40 buckets worth, which is a lot. You'll be killing things for a while to get that. Trust me, that will take some time. And that's just getting to your next one, and then the next one's even more, and you get the point. It goes on from there. Now, you will also be able to tier that up, and the thing is, it can accept one of all the way to the final tier, and you can skip the one in between. If you actually have it, of course, which whenever you're building up won't be there. But if you're making new bases, or you have a friend that you're trying to help provide for, that can be a thing. Now, but before I get into the alternate upgrades that have their own special purposes, I'm going to just go into the higher tiers of this one. And this is the Promise of Tenacity 2. Now, how you make it is you need an Ender Pearl. You need one of these bowls of promises, again, filled. Now, note that it says Strength 1, 2, and 3 on it. That shows it won't even take Strength 1. And it also requires the Gold Promise Acceptor. And now, As for what that takes, well, you can imagine it takes a block of gold. And as I said, another full tank at the upgraded capacity just to get to this next tier. But also note that it shows that you need the Promise of Tenacity in there for other reasons. It's not just showing that you need a tank that big. It actually is a tier system for making things. Having that in there unlocks additional recipes. That's very important. Now, so consider that to be a big deal. Now, remember how I said that that this has levels? And again, how this is saying that it has strength 0? Well, if I were to fill it from the get-go, you know, give it some, have the empty bowl, give it some crushed dark gems, then power it up. If I don't have an upgrade in there, that'll be only as much as it can get is strength 0. So the beginning tier of the bowl. If, however, I were to have one of the upgrades in it, then it will actually say that it gets it at a higher strength level whenever you finish it. So basically, if I have that upgrade in there, the Promise of Tenacity 1, it'll give me strength 1. And that matches the tier. So, for example, this one being the tier 2 version will give it strength 2, and this one is the tier 3 version. It'll give it strength 3. And note that you can also get anything on a lower level done on them, so that's not a big deal. Now, the Promise of Tenacity 3 requires even more stuff. You need an Eye of Ender, the Strength 2 bowl, or a Strength 3 bowl if you've already got one. So again, if you're making them for a buddy, this would be a good way to do it. And you need a Diamond Promise Acceptor. Now, this is one of the most expensive items you'll ever see in terms of how much blood it needs in one shot. So just telling you in advance, this is ridiculous. Because if you have one of these, the second tier promises in there, it'll upgrade the capacity to 160,000 MB, or 160 buckets worth. Which is impressive. But it takes that much to turn this block of diamond into a Diamond Promise Acceptor. And that is the biggest tier you're going to need, so that will be the most monumental bump in your road that you'll actually have in Evilcraft. I know from experience that is the big one. But I'm also going to show something a little bit different. The fact that you can actually take this Promise Acceptor whole thing and get around it if you already have one that's big enough. Because as I said, it will accept it straight off. Note how I just traded off? I skipped the second tier entirely. This thing doesn't really concern itself with whether or not you technically have done one, then the other in sequence. It's not like one of those mods where absolutely everything has to be upgraded in stages. You can't upgrade it all at once. And the same is true for the other blood machinery that requires these promises as their upgrades. So that is in fact an overarching theme. So you can just skip to it. And that's a pretty good thing, because if somehow you manage to get a good supply going, like I eventually did, then that can be quite useful. Now, there's also a couple of other ones, as that thing's still filling, that I'd like to go over. The Promise of Velocity and the Promise of Productivity. These are very special. They're alternates. They work off the Iron Promise Acceptor. So they're basically considered the same general tier of upgrade as the Promise of Velocity 1. The promise, so basically you can choose to do one or the other, and that upgrade slot, even though it's kind of reserved for Promises of Tenacity, can be used alternatively for one of these if you really want that to be your first and only upgrade for a while. But obviously you'll be wanting to upgrade it with the Promises of Tenacity because they will open up additional slots, and then you can have both. So the biggest thing is still go for Promise of Tenacity level first, and then figure out if you need other upgrades. Note that the Promises of Tenacity cannot be stacked, and the machine will only accept one at a time. You cannot put them in additional slots to upgrade its capacity further. It does not work that way. Also, having them together wouldn't even allow you to, like, upgrade the crafting tier anyhow. Basically, you just have one at a time. So you're probably wondering what the upgrades are for otherwise. Well, the Promise of Velocity is meant to speed it up. The Promise of Productivity makes it more efficient, and by that I mean it uses less blood for fuel when doing things, which would be a good thing when you're going for one of the bigger upgrades like the Promise of Tenacity 3. Because you'll want to be saving yourself a lot of fuel along the way, so Yeah. Now, how you actually make these, is, as I said before, it has to do with the iron promise acceptors as one of the bases. And again, remember the bowl always factors in. Now, promise of velocity requires a block of redstone. Promise of productivity requires a block of lapis. Either way, they still require at least strength 1 in the bowl and an iron promise acceptor. So whenever you're doing this, remember, you'll still technically need to have the promise of tenacity 1 first just to get the strength right. So I guess you could say tier 1.5, really, rather than side tier, now that I'm really thinking about it. But they can, in fact, be upgraded into these additional slots, as I was showing. Now, also note, they can only be stacked up to 4. This is important, because they will, in fact, have their effect stacked in that slot. So at full power, you have 3 additional slots, and you can choose between speed and efficiency, and or a combination of them. You can like max it out with one or the other if you want your machine to work just really fast, which won't use up additional fuel, might I add. It just uses it faster. And you can have it be like super efficient, but I would in fact myself recommend a combination of both. So if I were to put some of this in, and let me see, I guess I'll do 4 of those. Well, remember how I was showing how blood alchemy was supposed to work? Well, the thing is, they will in fact give you those benefits. So if you're trying to use that with any kind of blood alchemy, any kind of infusion recipe at all, it'll help you out. And now you've unlocked more just because you've upgraded your machine here. And now I'm going to show what they can do in terms of both vanilla type conversions, non-vanilla conversions, etc., because it's useful for getting materials you would normally make more of an effort to get a hold of, as well as some unique ones I haven't seen in many other alchemy mods. Like its version of doing things with heads is kind of unique. But in case you're wondering which chapter this is under, it's under Blood Infusion, and specifically all the ones that give you additional recipes are shown here under more Blood Infusion recipes. Now some of this I'll go over as to why it's important otherwise, but just showing what you can unlock here. Like you can also note again it has further support for Tinker's Construct, so you can actually make or duplicate coagulated blood from Tinker's Construct, which is highly appropriate. And that's first tier. You need just the Promise of Tenacity 1 for that. But you can see up here there's a whopper upgrade you can do only at the highest tier. And that's turning a blaze rod into a necrotic bone. And note that takes 6,500 MB, so 6.5 buckets worth. And these each have their own costs, so you can tell what's considered more and less expensive by the mod. And that's more of a thing to look into whenever you got your machine upgraded, because that gives you the most options, and then you can compare that way. Like as I was saying, you can also create it, so apparently that's for a slime ball. But also note these nice vanilla conversions of getting more convenient stuff, like your first tier here that you've upgraded to, you can turn rotten flesh into leather, which is of course convenient in many ways, and often done by smelting in most other mods that have that, but in this one you're using blood alchemy instead. You can turn Eyes of Ender into Spider Eyes as a second tier recipe, and Spider Eyes into Fermented Spider Eyes directly. You can convert between mushrooms apparently with first tier, and you can enliven dirt into grass blocks as first tier for fairly cheap. All the way up a third tier, you can make your bones into blaze rods. I can see why that would be very convenient. I don't think I've actually needed to do that directly myself. You can turn sand into soul sands at third tier, so that means if you're trying to build a wither, it is so much easier. Now, you can also at third tier turn seeds into netherwort, which is super convenient for people who have bad luck finding fortresses. You can at second tier you can turn cobblestone into netherrack, and this is what I was saying about head transmutation. There's this whole line here of turning a player head into a zombie head, into a skeleton skull, and finally into a wither skeleton skull, which is decently expensive at 25 buckets worth. That'd be But again, if you're building a wither and you have some way of getting skeleton skulls, otherwise that would make it a moment of convenience. But you also have some specialty things. Remember that Ender tier I mentioned earlier? Well, it's basically meant to create a gas tier. That is its primary purpose, and you only get that at third level. So, apparently, if you're fighting a lot more Endermen than you are gas, and you're trying to get that gas tier, there's your way. Now, there's also some of these other recipes, as I was going to show, but they're more specialized because they're meant for specific purposes within the mod, as well as earning some of these cool items here. Now, this empty orb is actually crafted fairly simply, but because it has to do something within this tier, I included it here, because otherwise you can't really use it. But it's primarily meant to be filled with blood for certain recipes to create a special blood orb. Now, to be able to actually do that, you need to basically have at least your first tier upgrade in, and then you basically just fill her up. It takes 3.5 buckets worth, but if I were to do that right now, it won't be the same because I've upgraded my machine. So this is where side upgrades really come in. Because it said 3.5 buckets. Well, let's see how it actually costs. Because I have a very large amount here. 650 buckets worth is kind of ridiculous when you think about it. Now, note this will happen considerably faster than it otherwise would, and they do have an individual fill rate. But note that I've made it faster and I've made it more efficient. So this probably will not use that full 3.5 buckets worth. And that should show very quickly. Now normally it would be down to, let me see here. Well, it's about to be finished anyhow. Ding! There you go. See, it barely used anything at all by comparison. Not even a full bucket. And that's because I made it so efficient. So, yeah, upgrades really help. Now, the blood orb itself is useful directly in recipes, including, well, these really cool things to do. To actually use some, you have the Scepter of Thunder, which basically allows you to make a thunderstorm out of nowhere specifically. It's not like the weather bottles before, where you have choices between them. This particular line of thinking is only one way. You only use it to make a thunderstorm. And for that, you'll need a couple dark gems and a couple of blaze rods. And I'm going to show this little thing off here in just a second. Yoink. Scepter of Thunder. Just to show what it's like. By the way, you can also make this kind of decorative block by converting moss stone. The thing is that it is also sometimes found in Terrain Gen if you find one of those evil dungeons it talks about. Again, never actually found one. So I haven't seen it myself, but I know it exists. But let's make a thunderstorm. Why? Just cause. Oh. It used to place for a second whenever it did that. Is it because I'm in... Maybe that's a rendering thing. That basically said these are supposed to be one use. So, yeah. You basically use this, use it up. I see a zombie trying to attack a villager. Hey, you. Go away. I need to demonstrate what he does at some point. So you just shoo. Thank you. Okay, that shows it's too dark. Sorry, dude. Oh, now they're... Well, that was random. Doesn't even see him in time. No! Not that. Oh, you. Oh. I'm gonna have to do a miscellaneous section just because you did that. I am... Okay, that's it. Shoo, everybody. Go away. Go away. Shoo. So much for demonstrating with enemies to get some blood. Gosh. That was a tragedy. Well, at least I didn't name them. I'm gonna have to show him off later. It's done like a whole other date because of that. Oh well. Okay. As I was going to also demonstrate, there's also these cool little devices you can make called Kineticators. We have the standard version, and we have a repelling version, which, seeing how objects have been strewn about, makes this actually quite perfect. Because... And to make these, it's you need a couple of dark sticks, a couple of gold, a diamond, a blood infusion core, and a blood orb that's been filled. Note that the exact order is very shape sensitive, and if you invert it, you invert the function, which is actually a nice touch. Now, what do? They actually attract or repel entities, like items. So if I were to, say, turn this on, there, I grab stuff. Now, on the other hand, just a moment, I need to turn that back off. Can I pull mobs? I don't think so. Can I still pull items? Because I think I got it, Whoop. Okay. When it glows, you know that it's ready. Just saying. But yeah, you need a shift click to actually turn it on or off, otherwise you're setting the power level. Now, let me see, I want to turn this to power level 3, and yes, you can change power level on this, it's actually pretty cool. And then I'm going to turn it on. It's now on repelling power. Can I repel mobs? No, that's another device. That's coming up. I thought this could do the same thing too while it was at it, but the answer is no. I'm going to try to send an item flying. See? It's pushing it away. I am chasing after this, and it's not working. Oh, that's kind of funny. Now, normally they use blood as fuel, so you'll need to power them up in a blood infuser. And this brings me to a few little miscellaneous details I didn't mention before. Namely, the fact that you can also... well, you're going to have to do a few things about fluid storage when it comes to your items. Because you may note that they have a limited supply. Well, that's where there's a few extra things to note about the blood extractor and the dark tank I showed previously. Basically, they have special supply modes. And with this, what it does is it will take from itself and give to other items that have a storage. And specifically ones that don't act as a base storage device themselves, but are just using it as fuel, like these Kineticators. So, right now, it's saying auto-supply disabled. And this also says auto-supply disabled. To enable that feature with either of them, you shift and right-click in the empty air, and now it says it's enabled. So, basically, they can act kind of as a battery or a fuel tank for things. And also, they have the ability to be upgraded, or at least the extractors and the dark tanks both do. You can, as I may have mentioned before, you can add them together and get bigger and bigger amounts. Well, now I figure it's about time to upgrade my blood extractor, just because it's a tad low. So now you may notice that it's going up from 5,000 to 21,000 MB, which is 21 bucks worth. Got the advancement a bit late for that. But anyhow, now I have a higher capacity. And it also gets rid of an item from my inventory. So that makes it pretty convenient. So as you're trying to actually fuel up things that require it, and that becomes more important going on this way, then you will definitely need to be wary of that supply mode. Now, because dark tanks can be upgraded very heavily, and so can the blood extractor, you can actually have a pretty good supply on you if you simply remember that you don't have to worry about the direct amount that they can hold, that you can worry about bigger amounts they can hold. Now, let's go on to a couple other things that you can do. Remember how I said some of those recipes were specifically meant to unlock other cool features, like the Kineticators and the Scepter of Thunder? Well, here we have some other useful things to think about. This is blood wax coal. it basically lasts twice as long as coal. It does take a little bit of infusion to get it working, but not too terribly much. Because, you know, it is coal. I mean, it only takes less than a bucket, which is 375 MB, and you do need to have a first tier promise in there, at least. Remember I said at least. So this is where upgrading to unlock recipes definitely comes in. And Blood Wax Coal, double your coal efficiency. Literally, it's worth 16 smelts. So for those who need to furnish some things up, that will be very convenient. And it does have a storage block form, which you can see here. And we also have something called Blood Potash. It's another unlock from that type of event. And it takes bone meal and a first tier promise of tenacity. At least to do it. It takes a bit more than the coal. It takes 800 MB, and basically it doubles your bone mealing, as it says. So, you're probably wondering, what does that even mean, though? Well, it means it basically adds, like, has to either double the area or double the growth gain that you normally have from bone meal. So you can tell that that was a bit bigger than normal for an area. And that's because of this increased power. It will also grow plants a bit faster, because it will add more growth check ticks. So that's basically what Blood Potash is about. It's basically a good farming tool. Sorry, there's no bloody bone block yet. I might want to suggest that. Wait, there's not, right? I didn't accidentally skip over that. No, it doesn't have anything other uses. I may have to talk to Crozier about that one. But also, over here, we have a few things that are also kind of unlockable. Some of which have to do with these cool tools and stuff. And some which, again, tie into the upgrade system. Well, since this thing's been staring me in the face for a while, I'll go ahead and... I didn't mean to do it that way. Sorry. Yoink. There's this thing called Dull Dust. It's not as big of a deal as you'd think, because it takes sugar and gunpowder, but what you use it for, I'm thinking, I don't know. It'd be one of those things that you'd have to be pretty desperate to want to do. Because all it really is useful for is making redstone. And even then it takes second tier, so if you haven't found redstone, a good supply of it by the time that you've got second tier promise, you've got a world with a problem. But yeah, it's just half a bucket worth for a conversion if you really, really need to do it. But again, I don't really see that as being a thing most of the time. Now, but before I get into some of these more crazy crafting recipes and things, I'd like to get into one of my old favorites, the Effortless Ring. I got one of these at random on Solitary Craft, and in some other moments I actually crafted one the normal way. But the thing is that what this thing does is kind of amazing. I think I have to hit B for bubbles. Don't I? Or do I have to hit another button? No, not that one. Give me a moment to check my keybind. Can't find it for some reason. Oh well. Anyhow, actually equipping it is optional. Just having it on manages to give you certain boosts. You just need to have it in your inventory. You don't even have to have the Bubbles API currently in your profile. It basically gives you automatic step assist. It gives you extra speed and extra jump for free. This thing never worries about fuel. It just is. And the thing is that to make it, you directly need the promises to make it, because they're actually crafting ingredients. You need 2 gold ingots, 2 iron ingots, the promise of productivity, and the promise of velocity. If you make this thing, it comes out pretty nice. So yeah, I definitely suggest this beautiful ring. And it even sparkles a bit for some. It does. But yeah, this ring will help you out while you're exploring your world. And note that the way it does it is without using buffs, so that stacks and or multiplies with things like speed and jump boost. So have a lot of fun with that one. Trust me. Yeah. And why do I have this other block here? I totally forget. Oh well. Anyhow, we also come across a few other interesting things that you'll be needing. Now, this has a split usage, so I'm going to show these off before I get to the other accessory and those neat little tools there. We have something called a Potentia Sphere. This is crafted with an interesting mix of ingredients. You need a couple of redstone, a couple of redstone dust, 4 glowstone dust, a couple of lapis, and a slime ball to get a Potentia Sphere. Now, what this thing is useful for comes in a couple of different directions. Now, let's not worry about that for a second here. What is often used for is to make an ender pearl for whenever you're desperate for ender pearls, which admittedly more than a few players have ran into before. I've seen some people with some really bad luck. I've never really had problems with ender pearls myself, but I can totally relate to people who have, because it's one of those things you either have or you don't. Now, it takes 2,000 MB, or 2 buckets worth normal, to be able to do this, but you also need to have your first tier. So it's not a high-tier version of a conversion, but it is one that needs an upgrade. Again, why I like putting all this in this section. But the Ender Pearl is a decent use for it, but it's not the best use. The best use has to go along this lineage here, what you call inverted potentia. To be able to invert a sphere, you need 4 dark gems. You don't need to power them up or anything special. They're just dark gems. So mine away. And now, once you have that, you have to do something special to unleash its real, well, potentia. Now, to do that, you need to either A, have an environmental accumulator, or the crafted version I'll be showing off at a later time, and you have to have a thunderstorm going off, because you have to basically have it charged with the power of lightning, and then it becomes empowered. In this case, it's not like the Exalted Crafters. It's not been tagged as invulnerable, and by the way, I did find my Ender version of that eventually. It was in fact still bouncing on the lava for some odd reason. I just didn't connect with it before, but it was there. Anyhow, the thing is that this is used as a very special high-tier crafting ingredient, and if you want it, you either have to charge it up with an environmental accumulator during a thunderstorm, or you can also literally strike it with lightning. Like, you could take one of these on the ground, and if you have some way of getting lightning, like, oh, say, one of those lightning grenades, you can strike it with lightning. And either way, it becomes empowered. But what it's useful for is some very strong stuff. These things are some of the specialty weapons and tools that you'll find. And note, again, they do use blood for fuel, so, again, that auto-supply mode will come in really handy. Now, one of these is the Mace of Distortion, and one of these is the Necromancer's Staff. You may also notice this nice little pendant here. I think I'll actually go over that a little bit later after I show off these cool tools, because I think I'm starting to want some mob revenge. Mace of Distortion, Necromancer Staff. Now, what these things do is interesting. Let me see here. I turn things off and then back on again. That was kind of classic. Is there any hostiles nearby now? No, nope, not really. Oh, I'm probably just gonna have to spawn in a zombie and take them out because, well, I want my revenge. I don't want them to get away with that, so I'll spawn them in anyhow just to whack them. Now, these tools are very special, and they have some interesting uses in combat as well as actually just doing some cool stuff. Now, the Mace of Distortion is kind of fun. What this thing does is you can power it up like with the other thing, but you can also cause a kind of a partial explosion. In this case, shift-clicking is what sets the power. It goes through 0 through 4, apparently. Now, its purpose is whenever you click with it, it sends entities flying, and this definitely includes mobs. Like a quick demonstration over here. Aw, didn't push it very far because it was in the water. Okay, I definitely need zombies to test. Fly now. Fly. Just go. Go flying. Okay, and you can pull back to really send them flying. Note that you can also toss Vengeance Spirits, apparently. Bang! Master Distorter. You actually get that for distorting enough entities within a certain time limit. Oh! Now it's working for some reason. Some of them died from the fall damage. So they made the bloodstained blocks I was talking about before. Why did that not work with silverfish? Were they literally so weak that it wouldn't allow them to count? Was that really it? Oh well, I'm sending you flying. I'm not even letting your spirits have rest after annoying me enough that I was too distracted to see a creeper being flown in by a rock, because that was very jarring. So, zombies, there's my revenge. I am flinging you everywhere. Now note that the mace also counts as a weapon because it has 8 attack damage. That's better than a diamond sword. That is better than the diamond sword. And making it doesn't even require diamonds, per se. I mean, you need some kind of rare events to get it to work anyhow. But you need a couple of dark sticks, a couple of dark power gems, and the inverted potentia, as I showed before. Which, yeah, there's that little complication. But once you really get some stuff going, that's not really a problem. It's just one of those things you can't do when you're starting out. So again, this is why getting into tiers and upgrades is a big deal, and something you can do later on. And let me see, does this even have the same? No, the knightly sword is nice, but it's not as good as it could be. So, I'm gonna have to redistribute some of those things later. Poor guy. His time was too short. The problems. I've already shown off these, although they are fun. But yeah, I think I'm gonna walk around with a mace so I can club things here and there. Now, there's also the Necromancer Staff, again requiring inverted potentia to make. To make this thing, it requires, well, the inverted potentia, dark stick, a couple of dark power gems. It also requires a couple of those spikes, but here's the interesting kicker. You need a head. You do need to have any head type item. It says, accepts item, any item skull. Yeah, that is true. You need to have beheaded something. Luckily, in even vanilla, you can get wither skeleton skulls, and those are accepted. But what this does is kind of interesting. It fires a little projectile that causes summon zombies to follow things. Let me see if I can see a squid in one of these pools. I mean, I could get a couple of lapis fish whacked, but it just doesn't have the same feel for it. Why not? Okay. Next pool I see, whatever creature is in it is getting zombied. Okay. Well, wait. There is one. See? A little projectile hits. Although I see he's changed the texture on it. And then zombies show up. And they come in and attack whatever you hit with it. But yeah, the Necromancer Staff allows you to be a Necromancer zombie summoning style. And they do target whatever it is and attack. And as you also saw before, they have a limited lifespan. So they only will be around for a little while. So this prevents people from spamming it so much that they cause lag. So and by limited lifespan, I do not mean that they die. They are simply despawned. So they won't leave behind vengeance spirits themselves. So that's kind of a special hitch that they've got. Now, here is something called Golden Thread. You use it to make this, basically, and an upgraded form that's extra special. But this is the Invigorating Pendant. What this is kind of unique. How you make it, you need some of this golden string, as I was saying, which requires a gold nugget and some string. That's pretty simple and self-explanatory. You need a couple of crushed dark gems and a blood infusion core. What it does is special. It basically, at the cost of blood from the pendant, it takes away debuffs. So, yeah, as it says, removes bad potion effects. And he has a lot of lore attached to these things. That's why I keep shifting and showing that. But basically, if you wear this or have it in your inventory, if you don't have baubles at the exact moment, which I may or may not have because I'm in creative right now. I'm not entirely sure. You have a hard time accessing your baubles menu from there unless you have the right key. Anyhow, if you have this, if you're affected by a bad buff, it is basically removed. So allow me to demonstrate by, well, I think I'm going to throw a bad potion on my own head. This is one of those things that you don't want to do normally, but in this case, it's technically... Oh yeah, that's right. Let me see here. Splash potion of... I need something... That, I don't know if it recognizes that, so that would be a bad idea. Splash potion of poison. If this doesn't work, I'll be disappointed. See, I don't have that on me. It doesn't show up anywhere, and it's not on my vanilla buff and debuff monitoring at the upper right side of the screen. It's because this removed it immediately. Because I'm in creative, it didn't use any blood from it. You will never use any fuel from anything while you're in creative. So just quick note that all these were basically completely free if you're in creative anyhow. But it removed poison immediately, which in itself is useful. If it did that alone, a lot of people would be very happy. But the other thing that it can do is it can remove more severe ones like Wither status. So this is actually pretty good when you're going boss slaying. So yeah, that's just beautiful. Now, as an interesting set of notes, I need to, as I'm getting some last remaining stuff happening, there is this beautiful item. This is known as the Purifier. And the Purifier is special. It has a lot of cool things it can do. Let me see here. I need to get to the other... Purifier. There we go. But basically, how you make it is a couple of dark gems here and there. There's about 4 of them, but a whole block worth as well. So that's basically 13 overall. You need a blood infusion core and a couple of those hardened blood shards, and you make the Purifier. What this thing does is it has very special uses, and they each have different costs in blood, and it's not filled up the same way as the blood infuser or the, or for that matter, the blood chest. You have to actually bucket blood in. It only accepts it whenever you use actual buckets, and I mean like you literally can bucket it, and that's one thing you can in fact get buckets worth by clicking on things. And it has some different ways of doing that I kind of didn't show entirely before, but was actually accessible earlier, because you can actually click on the blood infuser whenever it has at least 1 bucket worth of blood and pull it out, or vice versa. You can actually add blood in by simply clicking on it with a bucket of blood. So that is one thing that the blood infuser can do, is it can act as a quick storage for your buckets worth. And you can, in fact, use that to get buckets. So basically, you would usually have the blood infuser somewhere near to your Purifier, so that you could simply bucket some blood out and quickly shove it into your Purifier. Because you'll probably be needing to use it for some, again, some cool stuff. One of the uses from it is that if you, I almost forgot about the book. The book. This beautiful thing here. That is a book. You actually have to... see, can I click on that right now? Yeah. Okay. You actually have to make a book by... This is just so funny just saying that. I always did like that. But half a bucket of blood worth on a book with at least a first tier promise. This makes a book. And yeah, this summarizes exactly what it does. Can absorb item enchants when placed in the Purifier. But as one of the special uses of the Purifier, you can actually use it to remove enchantments from an item at the cost of 3 buckets of blood. So this is it when it's completely full. So it looks. So there's more than one reason why it looks kind of like a cauldron. And whenever you do that, it will be absorbed into the book. If the item is cursed and you don't have a book in, it can actually remove a curse. So if you have a curse of vanishing, curse of... Well, actually, let's do all the above, actually, real quick. That would be kind of nice to do. I will try to do all the above, because I have this nightly pick, and it has an auto-enchantment of Unbreaking 3. Now, I can just look up curse. And let me see, let's do something kind of irrelevant. Cursive Binding. Now, the original use of this was to get past a very particular, as I said, it was kind of added into the mod before curses became a thing in vanilla. But, oh wait, I think I remember I do in fact have an anvil set up. Yeah, I do. Don't mind the stuff on this wall, you won't be able to figure it out unless you really know what you're doing. Because it's not as easy to view that stuff as you think as to how it actually works. Okay. Okay, so a little quick working there. Okay, now it has Unbreaking 3, Breaking 1, and the Curse of let me see, was it Binding? Curse of Binding on it. Well, normally, and this works automatically, you don't clue it off. But at a small price, and no block to absorb anything, look! It just decided to make a few little poofs and stuff and a little fancy display. But now it's not doing anything more. That used up 2 buckets worth of blood because those were essentially 2 negative enchants or curses. So it removed 2 in a row, actually. The Curse of Binding and the Breaking enchant. Now, the Breaking enchant is technically classified as a curse, even though he apparently doesn't have the color right now. That's okay. We know what you meant to do. But now I can also take this enchant off by putting the block in, and you just snap it on there. And now you'll see this going through its whole thing again. Ding! Now when you click, you get the item is now unenchanted, so auto-enchanting items like from Twilight Forest and other mods that do that are kind of make this a bit easier to sort through if you know what they give you. And now I have the enchanted book of Unbreaking 3. So, what that basically allows you to do is you can transfer between different things. Like, oh, say this block and chain. Well, if I wanted to give it Unbreaking 3, I have this particular enchanted book I just got. Isn't that beautiful? I took the enchantment off one item and added it into another one. As an additional feature of what this can do, it's a little hard to set up, but you can in fact put an empty bottle into it, and if an entity that has any kind of potion effect is standing on it, then it will, again at the cost of 3 buckets worth, remove that effect and put it into the bottle in the form of a potion. The same amount of power level and time left that the creature had at the exact moment it removed it. So this could actually allow you, and I've actually done this before, remove the absorption effect from a that's remaining on you from a golden apple, and apply it into a small potion. So you can in fact get a potion of absorption this way, which normally is something you just don't get because it doesn't have a default recipe. But basically, this allows you to do some really interesting things that way, and my friend Intermittent Doom gave me an interesting idea because he told me how spiders with random effects work in vanilla. They give it like a nearly maxed out timer. You could make a potion that literally would last almost forever that way. That would just be beautiful. Now, there is one more thing in this tier that I haven't shown you yet. Kind of, you may have glimpsed it through there. Well, actually there's a couple things. One of which is this thing here. Well, this whole setup actually. But what you need to even make it requires some extra usage. You have the reinforced undead planks. They require Promise of Tenacity 2 at least, so 2 or 3 only. And they require 1000 MB or 1 bucket worth each. So note that, because this is actually a multi-block structure. You actually have to make a 3x3x3 hollow, meaning you have the middle one empty, out of reinforced undead planks, and one of them has to be this block, the Colossal Blood Chest block. And what this is it takes 4 of those around a blood infusion core. And as you can see, it is in fact a giant chest, and it has the animation where it opens, but you can see why I saved this one extra special. This is the Colossal Blood Chest. Unlike the normal one, it can be upgraded, so it will accept upgrade slots. It can allow you to do as the regular blood chest does, to repair things in it, and a whole bunch at a time. Seriously, look at this space. It's like that looks like more than a chest worth to me. So it is Colossal. And remember that Crozier is also the same modder who brought us the Colossal Chest mod as its own standalone thing, and they could be multi-blocked up to a pretty enormous size. Now, if you just want decoration with those reinforced undead planks, you can also use them to make stairs, which do in fact curve around like normal stairs, so thank you very much for that. Now, there's also... okay, I keep thinking of one more thing. What's up with that? Anyhow, there's a very fascinating thing that you can do, and it's already been showing over here, but this is the Entangled Chalice. Now, you may have noticed that I had a little something in my inventory that apparently had blood in it. And this is special how this works. It's literally like it's quantum entangled. This is fluid control in a way that I hadn't seen in any other mod. It's like wireless, pipeless fluid. If you click on one of these, it'll tell you what the group ID is. That's very important because all those in the same group connect. This doesn't matter where they are. It doesn't matter if they're placed in the world. It doesn't matter if they're in your inventory. The Entangled Chalice is just awesome for fluid usage. Now, I don't believe that it's limited only to blood either. I think you can also use it for other fluids. Like, as I said, the dark tanks can accept anything. Well, I think so can this. So it's used for really cool fluid control. And as you can imagine, you can also use special piping and stuff to control it. But you can see I've got this little setup here. I'm about to prove how this thing works. Yeah, this is awesome. Okay, this is just so awesome. I just need to throw in some pigs. Now, note very carefully how much it says these two have. 3,120 MB. Also note that it says something special for its supply mode. It calls it Omni Supply. That means it really will supply anything, anywhere, attached to them all simultaneously. As well as anything in your inventory. So it supplies everything, everywhere. But I am going to kill some pigs. Sorry. I know it's pointy. Probably should use zombies for this because I was in the Revenge on Zombies mood. Hello? There you go. Let's see how much that made. See, now it's maxed out. That's in my inventory. It also looks even more full now visually here. That's because they're all linked. So you can use this and a chunk loader to give yourself, using a special mob farm, of course, an unlimited supply of blood for your tools that you have on you at the time. And yes, if you have supply modes on, it will in fact note that you any bauble slots you've got them equipped to, so your accessories will still maintain power. And so now this basically is, I think, everything I can put into this segment for right now. I have some other things to show off that are thematically linked, as well as some miscellaneous stuff later. But for now, I think this is everything I can show right here. Oh, okay, except one more thing. That's how to craft this, because you'll probably want to know how to get one of these awesome things. It's actually a little more complicated than you might think, because of this little ingredient here. The Corrupted Tear. I mean, gold, yeah. Dark gems, mine for it. But this, you're probably wondering where to get that. Well, it's a tier 3 recipe. Yeah, it's not 0 tier, it's not first, it's not second. This is tier 3 only. But you need a gassed tier and 10,000 MB of blood, or about 10 buckets worth, and you get a corrupted tier. Now, the interesting thing about the corrupted tier is that it's only really used in this recipe. Only. You always get 2 of these at a time, but here's an interesting thing. You can also expand your system. If you have an Entangled Chalice, instead of one of the gold ingots, you place another Entangled Chalice. So you keep making additional pairs. Anytime that you link, anytime that you use one as an ingredient and make another set, you'll always get 2 more. So you'll turn each one that you into 2. So you can basically make 3 by having 2 that are already linked, and then crafting 1 of them into another pair, and then you'll have 3 of these working for you, and so on and so forth. Every time that you use one as a crafting ingredient, you get another pair that are linked to that exact same ID network. So remember, group ID is very important again, and they're very cool. So yeah, with that being, with the awesome amount of fluid control that this thing now has, I guess I can end it there, because that's pretty much everything in this segment. It's all the tools, little accessories that you can use. And after this, in my next run, I will break down this wall and show what's behind it, because I've been trying to make sure that the angles have kept it away, because it's something upcoming that is very cool, and it's a huge aspect of the mod. Huge. But I thought it deserved its own segment, so that's why I did that. Anyhow, for now, this has been Glitch Reaper, and I do have some more coming up here for the Evilcraft Mod review. So I do hope to hear from you all back later. I'll be signing off, so bye for now, everybody.